This week we meet interior designer George Chimirri. George puts his special touch on private houses and commercial buildings throughout New Zealand, but he is very much at home in Christchurch. At his distinctive home and office, I discussed design with him.
I believe that interior design has to reflect the person whose interior it is, and it also has to be lived in. I don't create interiors that if you move one ashtray the whole thing collapses. I mean, there are a lot of people who copy things straight out of magazines, and there's quite a few in the city, and they create interiors that are not really for the people who they represent.
Well, what does interior design encompass then?
Well, interior design for me, and I've studied, I studied for 4 years, and I've been in the business almost 20 years, means that you ask the right questions. And if you don't ask the right questions, you don't get the right answers. If you ask the right questions, you end up with an interior that the people are going to be happy with. I mean, you find out how many children they've got, and if they've got pets, and what the pet cat has a habit of doing. And if they've got some Siamese monster that's going to scratch everything, you're obviously not going to put silk into the room, because that's a bit self-defeating. So, I mean, there are all those little things that you take in consideration, and you make notes, and you go away, and you propose something at the end of it all, which hopefully works out for them.
So when a client comes to you, how do you begin?
Well, you might find this strange, but I have a very good client in Havelock North whose house I did over a period of 2 years, and they were prepared to spend big money and they wanted it really right. And I used to fly up there and spend up to a week with them, just living with them. And I used to cook for them and look after their children and play the odd game of tennis, and in the end I decided what I was going to do.
So how they lived their life every day was really important?
Yes. You realised where they put their clothes, you know, when they came out of the shower, did they just dump their bath mat and bathrobe somewhere, or, okay, were they tidy people, were they untidy people? The whole pattern and rhythm of their life really was resolved by the interior and how it reacted with them.
How much choice does the client have, or do you present them with a whole package?
They ultimately have as much choice as they want. I usually, with a colour scheme, try and give 2 choices. I usually do what I think I would like for them, like I think what is really right for them, and then, which is usually sort of spot on, I think, and then I produce a really outrageous one, okay? Without giving too many tricks of the trade, the outrageous one is to sort of shepherd them into the right direction, in a way. But it also allows you to just, some people are really quirky, like I've had clients who come to me and they don't give you the right answers because of who they are. They might be very public people, and they think that people perceive them in this way. And they may be real slobs at home, but they don't want to tell you that they're slobs at home. So they give you the wrong information. Hence, your design is wrong, because once they get it, they don't like it, because it's never going to work for them. So I try and counterbalance that by going to an extreme. In other words, I produce what I think the person is, providing that what they've told me is true. Then I produce something that I perceive is them if they told me a lie. That way I get both. If they're really brave, and it has happened, they pick the outrageous one.
What influences in your life affect your style of design?
I think my European background. I grew up in Melbourne with an Italian father and a Jewish mother in a predominantly Italian ghetto. And then I went to Europe and did the great OE, I never really felt like an Australian. I think the theatre has stood me in good stead because when I studied and did my BA, I studied general design, and my intention was to work in theatre. And my dream was to work at Covent Garden, which actually did happen. And I was there for 2.5 years. But having worked there, I discovered that, you climbed the mountain sort of thing, and there wasn't really anything else. And it was all so ephemeral. I mean, you did a costume or a set or something, and so everybody saw it, and then the season was over and it was put into storage, and unless you were an aficionado of ballet or opera and said, oh, I remember a set that What You Call did in 1900 and whatever, who was ever going to remember it? And so I decided that I wanted to do something that people lived in, and I enjoy doing commercial projects because people publicly use them. It's not just closed to a particular family. Although I enjoy domestic work as well, which is very, very personal. But the commercial and public angle is very interesting because you go back years later and you see how it's worn. But the theatre background means that I can create something out of nothing. And I'm a budget man. I'm not ashamed to say it. To me, budget is important. When people come to me, I ask them, how much do you want to spend? And today, and I was doing that 13 years ago, when money was a dirty word. Years ago, people would come to you and say, what can you do for me? Now they come to you and say, how much can you do it for? So that's how things have changed. But because of my theatrical background, I have the advantage over my competitors that I can dabble in Trump Loyal work, I can dabble in all sorts of theatrical backgrounds without making it too theatrical.
When do you feel in a job that you've actually got it? Do you ever reach a position where you think, I'd like to freeze it now, I'm satisfied with the effect I've got?
That's a very difficult question. Sometimes you think you've got it the minute you've walked into the place. You know, within 5 minutes, exactly what you want to do. And in those occasions, it's then a matter of seducing the client into thinking that way. I put it on the board, and I knock it down, and I put it up again, and I knock it down. And that's my form of refinement. I knock it down for various reasons. I either knock it down because what I've got on the board is too expensive and over the budget, so I have to knock it down, refine it and get it cheaper, but the same effect. Or I knock it down because I'm still not happy with it. I came to New Zealand 13 years ago, and I realised then that this was the lifestyle that I wanted. I don't want anything more in my life. I've got everything I want.
After talking with interior designer George Chimirri at his home, we visited several places he's designed around Christchurch. One of his most recent projects was the Cafe Vesuvio in Oxford Terrace.
Okay, this bar is very European, as we can see. It has lime wash walls, which are Italian, and the paint actually came from Italy. The canopy over the bar was painted by a New Zealand Christchurch artist called Mark Lander. And it's kind of a Clayton's canopy. It's not really a canopy at all. It's actually a work of art in itself. But it adds colour and texture to the bar and interest. We have amazing floors, which are Peruvian tiles, which have got little inserts of greenstone or green marble in them, which again is a very European touch. And it's a hard floor, which people here have to get used to, but it can look wonderful when it's buffed with real beeswax, dare I say it.
Do you use a hard floor because it's functional?
Yes, definitely. Of course, the only drawback is that if you drop anything on it, it's gone forever, like a glass or a cup. But I mean, the Italians have been doing that for centuries. They get to take that as a bad draw card, but it doesn't seem to bug them.
Now these special features like the floor and the canopy, do you have them specially made or import them specially?
The tiles were imported from Peru through a tile merchant here, but they're available to anybody who wants to use them. You just have to know how to use them and what to use on them. And the beeswax enhances the tile because that's how it would normally be used in Europe. Here we tend to go for that sort of functional plastic look by sealing them, which really doesn't do anything for the tile. The tile dies. It's like getting a bird and having it shrink wrapped. The bird dies, and so does the tile. But with the wax, it actually enhances the tile. It brings out moodiness and colours, and really, and a natural gloss, which you could never duplicate. The chairs are a knockdown Italian chair. The table bases I designed myself, and they have a sort of little Italian motif. It's sort of token gesture to Italy. We haven't really gone out of our way to make this an Italian bar, but you could sit in this quite comfortably anywhere on the Via Veneto or anywhere in Italy. It could be anywhere in Europe. The notice board is a little sort of French touch, and it just allows people in Christchurch to know what's going on, and it's a sort of information board to the people who sit here. The story behind the doorstep is that the owner asked me to do something at the step which was quite ugly. It was just a concrete section, and I made this doorstep out of brass and had it engraved, and it goes back to a restaurant in Melbourne which still exists, which is decades old, which I went to as a small child, and I was asked at the opening of this bar why this appeared, because the person who asked said it was very lovely and it was a lovely touch. And I could find it in them that when I went there as a child, I tripped over the step, fell face down on it, and I've never forgotten it.
A few weeks ago, a friend mentioned she'd been to a wedding at a beautiful country house. You should do a story on it, she said. Sarah, I replied, we're already booked this week. We've beaten her to it. Dotted around Canterbury are large stately houses, memories of another time, another way of life. Hokuku Country Lodge was lost and forgotten for many years, however is now being restored to the traditional elegance of the era when it was built.
The original structure burnt down in about 1916, 1917, and this homestead was built over the existing foundation. It's of a styling that was quite common in the southern states of the United States, in the Beverly Hills area, between about 1910 1935. And it was Mrs. Hugh Ensor that saw the styling while she was travelling overseas, and had architects Guthrie Brothers design and build the property. It's some 9,500 square feet. It's built of 8 inches of reinforced concrete in the walls, and it has a slate roof. So obviously Mr. Hugh Ensor was going to make sure it didn't burn down the second time. It's said that Hugh Ensor used to come to the front balcony each morning just above the front door, and he would have all his farm hands lined up on the drive, and he'd give them their instructions for the day and then retire inside. So they were the gentleman farmer days. The next person who bought the property was a chap by the name of Tom Pearce, a bachelor, and he was a very rough diamond indeed. In fact, he used to have hay stored in the billiard room, and we still have testimony to that with the rusted nails in the floor where the damp hay had affected the flooring. And in the dining room, he'd have coal brought directly by the sack to the fire, and used to hang his sheepskins up in the entrance hall to dry on the pelmets. When we first arrived at the homestead, formerly called the Rakahuri Homestead, It was used as a typical farmhouse. Large as it was, much of the upstairs was very little occupied. The people who actually owned the property had a double bedroom in the lounge, and they obviously made little use of the potential of the house. So in terms of decorating, we've had to obtain some expertise in other fields, because we really thought from the outset that we required people who had experience in the development of the lodge and so forth. One individual, Mr. Matt Lingens, was involved in terms of the planning of bedrooms, the planning of reception areas, kitchen areas and so forth. And then in terms of the redecoration of the lodge, that in itself was quite an extensive exercise, and Jenny and I, although we've had some small degree of experience, we found that in terms of the size of areas that we're speaking of, that we needed expertise in this respect, and hence we engaged George Chimirri, who's been extremely helpful in guiding us in the direction that we should take. And it's based on his ideas with our physical work in terms of stripping walls and replacing ceilings and generally painting and redecorating that we're finally getting to some end result, but there's still more work to be done.
Michael and Jenny Malthus have had some guidance in restoring our cuckoo. Interior designer George Chimirri has been working alongside them since they first looked at turning the house into an elegant country lodge. Tell me about what you've done in the room here.
Well, this room was, of course, the room where they kept the hay, and they had it stacked to the roof. And all this panelling was really quite black. It was dark. It's actually cedar, and we've had this all stripped by hand, and we haven't shellacked it or polyurethaned it. We've actually used beeswax again, and it gives a nice soft sheen, but what it's done is brought this room to life. It was really dark and dingy and boring, and I had to fight to get the halogen lighting in here. It's a lovely white light. It sort of appears out of nowhere, and it has this magnificent, billiard table, which is fabulous, that was brought up from Dunedin.
It's a long...
Yes, and it comes to pieces, and it's actually 4 pieces of slate. It's absolutely huge. I've never seen cues as big as that. And we've tried to warm it all up, using real rugs, not junk. We've tried to find on the odd occasion a very good rug that works within the parameters of the colours. And I see this as essentially a clubby room where you come for your pre-dinner drink or retire to for your cigars and port. The bar that we've got here was actually made out of panelling that we took out of the hall. There were 2 doors. That was a sort of cloakroom cupboard. And so we just turned it into a bar. Again, it's not blatantly commercial. It's like your own personal bar, and they have guests who come and help themselves to a gin and tonic before they go to the lawn and play tennis or whatever.
Tell me about the wall. What sort of style were you aiming for in here?
Well, some people might like to call it French country, but it really isn't French country. I mean, we're trying to establish that sort of New Zealand feeling about it. We've used French aspects, however, because I believe that the house is essentially European inspired, and it has that sort of chateau feel about it. And I've used a little frieze, which actually ironically is made in France, and the paint we had mixed to match the frieze. We bought the frieze first, and we've called it a cuckoo cream. We chose the little frieze, as I said earlier, which has got a nice Atlantic blue colouring in it, and from that we linked the French blues and basically worked with the cuckoo cream as a perfect foil to the stripped panelling. The panelling, as I said, was quite dark. So we've lightened it. We've blown a breath of fresh air. We've given this CRP, I think.
CRP?
Yeah, cardiac, whatever it is, We've given it a breath of life. I mean, we've inflated its lungs and started breathing again, because it really was quite depressing and really stodgy and sad. And it was really awful because it's a really lovely house.
It feels like a home rather than a...
Yes, it was always designed as a home, and we still hope that people will find it per se like that. They'll find that it is a home, and it's not a hotel, and in a very sort of dramatic or commercial manner. And of course, this is the cowrie banister, which has been beeswaxed, and we removed all the carpet from the floor and up the staircase with that dreadful Persian rubbish, and we put in some coir matting, some coconut matting, which is very country and doesn't scream at you and just blends beautifully into the woodwork.
Continues that nice light feeling about it. Through here?
And then through this little fire door, and we're into the accommodation wing.
Tell me, George, who made all the furniture in the room? It's lovely.
Well, this is our prototype room, and it's our best suite, and this is made by a furniture maker in Canterbury called James Dowell. It's made out of ash. It's all hand carved. He's made the commodes by the side of the bed, which I've insisted on putting chicken wire in. And we've got a sort of tartan feel, and we've also got the little French-inspired chair. But we've also got the tester above the bed and the little tartan shades.
A tester?
A tester. It's called a tester. I don't know its correct history, but it probably dates back to sort of mosquito nets and light drapery around the bed. It's gradually receded into the wall.
This looks lovely.
Yes, these are all made out of ash and plank tables, and this is a lovely room for a bridal couple who've just had a wedding here. They can come up here and relax. It's a very large room. The fireplaces here are really remarkable because they are actually very, very French, and you can see that in the detail of the stonework. The timber surround in the whole alcove is very, very European.
George, did the same furniture maker who made the bed make the rest of the furniture in the room?
No. James has been making furniture for me for many years, and he made the tables and the chairs that we're sitting on, which we'll see later on in the dining room. But the other pieces we've picked up, and we've got a lovely armoire which was made in Thailand. And although I didn't want a particularly French feeling about this room, it adds just that little bit of French feeling without going all the way. Hence we've got tartan, which is very English or Scottish. And we picked up recently a lovely writing desk. And these are very soft, limed timber pieces which blend. I don't want this to feel contrived. I want you to feel that this room has evolved over a period of time.
Every room, of course, has its own ensuite bathroom as well. They look like they're still the originals, are they?
They are indeed. A lot of work has gone into restoring them. All the fittings are original. The only things that have been replaced are obviously plumbing and the electrics. They are very typically the bathrooms of their time. This house was built in the 20s, so they're quite Art Deco, with pedestal basins and black and white tiles. And they're quite fabulous. The bath itself is, well, I think it's absolutely a marvel, because I can't imagine anybody today having that much hot water to fill it. It's huge.
The house is unique in many respects, not only because of its size, but because of its styling, which is not all that common in the Canterbury area. People feel that when they come to the place that they're coming into an environment that is perhaps English or French in setting, and they enjoy the atmosphere of the whole thing.
I think it's almost like entertaining away from home, particularly for our wedding parties. They have the lodge for the day, and it's a very private place to be. And I think it's still got that very intimate feel about it, the homestead. And I think that's what people enjoy, and particularly even the dinner parties. They come out and they have a lovely private environment in which to enjoy the company of their friends and to be able to dine and basically have all the work done for them.
It's a situation where you have to develop the lodge to a standard that you find that's acceptable not only to yourselves but also to the guests. Right at this stage, where we're still in the process of development, we're very much involved in redecorating, organising, landscaping and doing much of the physical work ourselves. So in that period of time it's probably taken its toll, but I think for as long as that you can sort of see the light at the end of the tunnel and you can see progress being made and the feedback that you get from your guests, it's enough impetus to continue.
With so many old buildings being demolished to make way for new, it's recognised that many New Zealand towns and cities are in danger of losing their heritage. Many of those who head the movement to save such buildings recognise that they are still useful and can be turned into meaningful spaces for today. Two Christchurch designers have done just that. Take a 95-year-old building, add two creative minds, lots of imagination and style, and some panache. The result is another beautiful old building given a new lease of life. Barbara Lee has waited a long time for this.
William and I have been looking for a building for years and years and years, because we moved temporarily up 2 floors in a lift at 236 High Street 15 years ago. And we've been looking and arguing, we've been rich and we've been poor in that time. That's the prop business. But we've always looked. And one day we drive past this area every day to work. And I said to William, I always loved this area. Why does nothing ever come up here for sale? And it was. There was a big sign on the window saying, for sale. And so we wrote down the number and rang up immediately and rushed along and had a look at it and thought, this is fantastic. And the next day, George rings me up and he says, seen any good buildings lately? We've been both looking for buildings for 15 years. And I said, wouldn't tell you if I had. Which is our stock reply to one another. And he said, you can tell me if you like, because I've just bought a house in Cambridge Terrace. Marvellous house. And I said, well, as a matter of fact, George, found a great building next to Mackenzie Willis and Truham Street, isn't it? And I said, yes. And he said, I was going to buy that. He said, buy it. Well, I said, I think we might. So we did.
Because we'd been both looking for buildings, I was thinking at the time of moving out of Cranmer Court, and I had seen this building, and it was, the Gothic Venetian front took my eye. And as Barbara said, when I lost interest in it because I purchased another property, I told her about it and told her what I would do with it. And that sold her. Once she heard what I would do with it, she said, we've got to buy this. And she was right. I mean, I knew it was right. We're very similar. We're both designers and we're both looking to do something wonderful with such an historic building. I had Cranmer Court before. Barbara and William live in a historic building in Littleton. I mean, we're very similar tastes and we complement each other. We know basically what the other person is thinking before they even open their mouths sometimes. So it was that sort of situation, really.
Regulations required the building to be almost rebuilt internally to comply with fire and earthquake codes. Most of the structure is hidden away from the customer's eyes.
William calls it the SS Barbara because there's so much steel work in it now.
Yeah, William was actually quite convinced that we were building a battleship because the amount of steel that came into this building and never went out, it looked like a dockland scene at some point with welders and engineers crawling over the place and inspecting every minute piece of brickwork.
So we've got one beam showing.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he did that deliberately, but it's all beautifully, discreetly hidden.
Yes.
And of course we had to do all the fire rating, so most of it's under the ceiling.
So we lowered the ceiling to a point where a lot of the strengthening and in the walls have been clad by the fire rating, so, you know, it kind of works.
While beams were hidden, floors were exposed and now link all the areas of the shop and the business.
And we stripped them all down and sanded them and oiled them, and we opted for an oil finish, which is, you know, renewable and doesn't use any dangerous chemicals like polyurethanes and things. I mean, because I know when people are shopping for dresses, they could take hours, and just imagine all that poisonous gas they can take in all that time.
Gas? What's he talking about? You know what he's talking about? I've never heard poisonous gas coming out of aged polyurethane floors.
Now what intrigues me is we've got two designers here, and yet what you've come up with is very, very simple. There's not a lot of colour in here. Was there any conflict in deciding how it was going to look in the end?
I'm absolutely adamant about background colour for a clothing shop. I think it's got to be dark and neutral or white, and because I think the clothes have got to shine, and so it's better that it's a white background and your colour is brought in with the clothing.
We had one,
not the decor.
We had one problem though when I pointed out that there were 12 colours of white.
Oh, it's
so we had
terrible.
to choose.
It's
one.
very difficult to get just the right
shade,
white, because you don't want a blue white, you want a warm white. You know, it's something that makes us women look nice.
Now, George, you've done some intriguing things in the office space. You've divided the space with fabric.
Correct. That was obviously probably a little to do with ingenuity and budget requirements, but I think we came up with a very clever solution which can be dismantled at any time, made larger, made smaller, allowing natural light to flow through.
You haven't told them that it's a temporary space.
And it is a temporary space, so it seemed pointless doing something expensive and which had to be dismantled at some point. This can be, but it can be done in 2 minutes. And it's fun. If you'll notice, all the lighting is being bounced off the ceiling. And I had a certain lux level that I had to reach for clothing. And I was getting close, but not close enough. So we utilised the mirrors to bounce a bit more light in the reflection side of things, and achieved the lux level, which is exactly what we wanted.
We wanted to retain the sense of history. Upstairs, the sense of history would be more obvious,
yes,
because there's a wonderful ceiling and it's an awesome space upstairs. But downstairs, the floor and the height and the facade, and we're keeping as much of the feel of the building as we can, but we still want it to look like a modern design shop. And we don't really want a quaint, sort of old-fashioned frock shop. I think the joy of people buying these buildings is to turn them into a use for today.
And this building was restored with support from the Christchurch City Council. Tucked away in the heart of inner Christchurch is an elegant, unobtrusive family home. Built over 40 years ago and much loved and cared for in that time, new owners decided it was time to update it. I first went there last year at the beginning of 1992, but for George Chimirri, it all began the year before.
Well, we went to see the house late last year, and it was very typical of its era. It had been built in 1949. You can see the plans are quite delightful. They've actually hand-coloured them. They don't do that anymore, much to our amazement. And it really didn't fit the environment or the lifestyle that the new owners needed, really. So we embarked on a rather ambitious plan to open it up a little more, and in some cases move walls quite a distance, and replan it so that it had some kind of reference to what they really wanted. I mean, basically the house is is on a stunning section, and it's been very well planted by the previous owners, and they've obviously loved and cherished this house. We're not actually wrecking it, but we're actually giving it some rather dramatic surgery.
Acting as architect and interior designer, George was given carte blanche by the clients, whom he'd worked with before. The strong relationship of trust allowed him to go back to basics. Gutting the house was the first stage, and soon nothing bore any resemblance to its past.
Now, which room's this?
Now this is the master bedroom, and we're going to rip out some of this wall here, and I'm going to take out this whole wardrobe.
It looks a terrible mess, George. I don't know how you know where to start.
We'll get there. Well, you can see here that this is the existing wardrobe to this bedroom here. Now we've taken it out and we've stolen this space so that we can, and we'll fill in this wall here. This will be a child's bedroom. This will be the beginning of the master bedroom.
So just to make the room bigger, and so that's why you need a dressing room, because you've lost your wardrobe.
Yes, we do need a dressing room, but also we have no wall because of the window situation in this room. We have no wall large enough to take the bed. So this had to be the wall to put the bed on with the view.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that. So now going behind us here is going to be where you go into the walk-in dressing room.
That's right. We're going to punch a hole through that window and go into a walk-in dressing area.
Let's go and have a look where the bathroom's going to be.
Okay, this is going to be the ensuite.
This whole room's going to be the new bathroom.
That's correct. Here we're going to have the loo, right? In the middle we're going to have the shower, the bidet, and the towel.
Is everyone going to do everything at once?
Hopefully not, but we will have extraction.
Yeah. And the bath behind you, and then the
No, the bath is in this area.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be the corridor. We're going to get a new corridor line in line with that doorway to that master bedroom when we close off that bedroom. So the shower is actually partially in its own little alcove of luxury.
George, how does this space relate to the kitchen plan?
Well, I'm actually standing in front of where the ray burner is going to be.
Yes.
Okay, and we're going to have the little wine holding areas in this corner here.
Yes.
And this is going to be the bench, and you're approximately where the fridge and the divider is going to be.
So that door won't be there anymore. That door space, will that move?
It'll move. It'll be locked up. The entrance will be from that partition wall behind there.
And these are the floorboards that you're going to leave, George?
That's right. I'm going to take up some of these floorboards from other areas, and I'm going to patch in here areas that we're going to tile over, and I'm going to also use them in the extension.
What about the windows? Are you going to reuse them?
All the windows that we've taken out we're reusing, and so that window there will be relocated further out. And for all intents and purposes, this house will look the same as on the original plan, only it would have grown a little.
What about all the structural steel I can see above us here?
Yeah, we had to get some expert advice here, but we've handled that rather well, and the steel girders we've put in enable us to do this extension and to take the brunt of the weight of the roof, which is a really hefty Marseille tile roof, as you've seen, without jeopardising height and still giving us the open plan that we need by taking these walls out.
Till we can your clients envisage it as clearly as you can?
No.
It doesn't look big enough.
No.
The space doesn't look big enough to fit all those things in, let alone a bath.
Yeah, well, the bath will go.
The sitting room, the living area, George, what are you doing in here?
Okay, this is the bookcase that was just taken out, and we're going to punch a hole through there and put this set of French doors, which have been copied from that set, in there, which will then lead on to the conservatory.
So the conservatory is flowing through outside here.
With two exits, yeah, or entrances.
Is this the sunny side of the house?
It's a northeast face, and we should be able to get quite a bit of light in here.
La donna immobile, qual piuma al vento, muta d'accento e di pensiero, sempre un amabile, leggiadro viso, in pianto, in riso e menzognero. La donna immobile, qual piuma al vento, muta d'accento e di pensiero. E di pensiero. E di pensiero. E sempre misero chi a lei s'affida, chi le confida, mal cauto il core, ormai non sentesi felice appieno, che su quel seno non liva amore. La donna immobil, al più malavento, tutta pensiero e di pensiero e di pensiero.
Trompe-l'oeil is French for a trick of the eye. It's when paintwork and other effects are used to disguise, to change, to enhance, to make something seem not like it really is. Trompe-l'oeil can be elaborate, but it can also be simple, and it's surprising where it's found.
Interior designer George Chimirri was commissioned to design a very small garden to complement a city apartment. It's a topiary miniature garden where things are not quite as they seem.
Actually, we've used a lot of trompe-l'oeil work in this instance to achieve what we wanted to achieve.
Which is?
Changing a very boring concrete block wall into a stone wall and creating a walled garden of Italian or English feeling.
So you mean to tell me this is or was a concrete block wall?
Yes, it is, Maggie.
It still is?
Yes, it still is a concrete block wall, but we've painted it to look like Oamaru stone in this case because that was the client's preference. And we've done it below a certain level so that it's not seen from outside, so that the incongruity of concrete block versus Oamaru stone is never revealed until one is in the garden.
There is some real Oamaru stone in the garden. Take careful note. The planters and the plinths which the urns stand on are the genuine article. Anyone can be confused.
The artist who did this work did a lovely job, and I criticised some of it and was critical of the amount of moss that she was putting into the Oamaru stone. You can see that we've got lovely saw marks in it as well, just like real stone. And at the time she was recalled to put more moss in it, and I found her, to my amazement, actually painting moss into the real Oamaru stone. She actually even confused herself.
With skillful application of a special paint, concrete blocks could become virtually anything.
Obviously you are restricted by the parameters of the concrete block itself. I mean, in this case we've actually just highlighted the mortar that would mortar lines in this, but we've really achieved that block effect but changed its appearance. This is a little sort of Italian or Delphi sort of shrine, or a little quiet place for contemplation, and again, it's not really what it appears to be. There was a red door going into a garage, and that is actually behind there. So that isn't even concrete block. That's a nice piece of Hardiflex which we've covered the door with, and we have these lovely bronze pillars which are actually PVC, and I think on the whole we've really achieved a rather good vista.
Over the hills in Littleton, George is using paint effects to transform the old post office into the newest local brasserie.
We sort of attacked this building in a rather strange way. It's got a lot of concrete detailing, which I felt needed to be interpreted as stonework. We decided to go ahead and do it in as Sydney sandstone. If we'd just done it onto the straight concrete detailing, it would just appear as just a paint job. But by adding the texture and then adding the paint, we've achieved the complete trump loyal trickery of the eye that you are actually think it's stonework.
The subtle colours on the exterior derive from Littleton's colonial past, but inside it's a very different story, and not at all what it seems.
Well, I'm not going to tell you what we've done to this wall. I mean, you wouldn't believe what we've done to this wall. But hopefully the patrons will sit here and wonder about it over there at Cinzano. The inspiration of this was a room that still exists in this building, where a lot of paint and paper had been peeled off the wall. And we sort of took that and simplified it a little bit and made it bright, and I guess colours of today, they are really quite bold in their own respect. And I kind of wanted a surprise to the story outside.
Well, there's a wall beside you finished yet. It seems to have some holes or bits of paint peeling off it.
That's the finished product.
Oh, really?
I have to tell you. That took a lot of time to achieve that, and we're nearly there with it. It'll probably get a few more scuff marks in it before it's finished.
So it's looking like old paper peeled off the walls, like it's been here for years.
Yeah, this restaurant bar hasn't any pretensions. You're in an old building. We want you to feel that you're in an old building. It's not an old building touted up. The emphasis will be that in this old ambience you're going to enjoy good hospitality, good food and good wine.
The Littleton Brasserie was obviously still under construction when we filmed last week, but it does open soon, so do go along to admire the illusion and to taste the reality. And that's our program for tonight.